Hi, and welcome to VisibilOT, a podcast dedicated to raising awareness, providing education, and advocating for individuals living with invisible disabilities and chronic conditions. I'm your host, Lisa, and I'm passionate about providing education and support for individuals and healthcare providers alike to bring visibility to an often misunderstood population. Before we get started, I want to emphasize that the information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical or therapeutic advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider for personal medical concerns. Welcome back, everybody. Today we have Chris Werge on the show. I am so excited to have him here. He has a YouTube channel that I stumbled across a little while ago, and I have had the privilege of listening to several of his videos with some really wonderful guest speakers, and I've learned so much. So I'm so happy to have him here today. Chris, if you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your life.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Lisa. It's really nice to be on someone else's channel. I think this is my first, podcast or talk with someone else besides working on my own content. But just a bit about my background. I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm still based here. And I was pretty healthy and fit prior to the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of fear and a lot of stress around that time. I lost my job at the time for about 6 months and got tremendous anxiety levels and everything. And obviously, everyone is struggling with mental health stuff at that time. But I'm 33 years old now. And at the time, I was, I guess, 31 years old, and what I've been battling with the last 2.5 to 3 years now, almost 3 years now in April, is also long COVID, similar to something that you shared earlier. And it's been such a journey trying to understand what the illness was, first of all, and also understanding, exploring the role that the vaccines played, because I had 2 Pfizer shots as well, and kind of understanding that those have affected my body in some way as well, but also understanding that what I've experienced in my lived experience seems more like a post-viral condition of the actual acute infection of COVID itself. And yeah, I've been on such a journey figuring out what it is and how to get better. But that's basically me, yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other ballpark, and the difference between the post-vaccine injuries and long COVID itself from the acute infection. I'm glad that would be a whole nother episode to go into distinguishing those.
Yeah.
What were your kind of symptoms starting out, and when did you first notice that something was wrong or different, as opposed to the typical, oh, I've just been sick and I'm recovering from a sickness? When did you really make that connection that this wasn't the same as that?
Yeah, so I'd say that looking back, I've had to think really hard about what I felt at a particular period in time. It's difficult because obviously, one of the side effects or one of the conditions of long COVID and this post viral infection is that you have this brain fog, and my short-term memory is incredibly bad, and a lot of my longer-term memories also seem a bit hazy. So as far as I've gone through my records of messages with my colleagues at work, a manager, and it was actually after my second Pfizer, I looked back, and November, December, he was messaging me to, hey, just saying, checking you okay. So, like, you seem a bit not like online often, or you just don't seem like yourself. And I said, I'm struggling with some kind of exhaustion, or I thought it was just like the end of the year, December, I'm exhausted. I just need a holiday, then I'll be fine. And so it carried on, and I didn't even think vaccine related. This was only after my second Pfizer vaccine. And January, February, March, I think I was doing fine, to be honest. I was still exercising, playing ultimate frisbee 2-3 times a week with a group here in Cape Town, and also cycling pretty often, 20-30 Ks throughout the week. And then the reason I feel that my lived experience is more post-viral in a sense than vaccine injured is that I was doing a cycle tour race March 2022, and the beginning of that month I did 109 kilometers. I think it's about probably 60, 70 miles in your metrics, I guess.
Metric units.
But basically, I felt pretty strong, to be honest. Like, I had the fatigue now and then, and I would need to sleep for an hour or two, which was that's what I'd call more post-vaccine kind of related injury or side effect. But after after the cycle tour, I was fine. But I think I picked up COVID from someone there, because literally within a week or two, I was down, and basically the symptoms of COVID was incredible fever, headache, sore throat, cough, like body aches, like, all of that. I ended up going for a swim in the pool. Middle of the night, the fever was that bad, like in a freezing cold pool in April in Cape Town. It's almost like winter. So, yeah, for 10 days, I'd say I was feeling horrible, and then actually got better. And I remember my girlfriend, well, she's now my fiance, but at the time we were still dating. Well, thanks so much. But she's like, no, Chris, like, come on, you've been in bed for like almost 2 weeks now. You need to come to my friend's birthday. She wants to meet you, da da da. So we went, and I just felt horrendous. And like, first time I'd seen people in 2 weeks, and I thought I got better, and I thought, okay, cool, I'm fine. Then I carried on going back to frisbee, and I just didn't feel like the fitness level that I used to have. But I thought, no, it's fine. My body will get there eventually. And then as the year progressed, this is now getting towards September, October, November, I was having lots of these, what I'd call a pancake day or a flat day, where I just would wake up after a full night's sleep and then actually collapse. I'd even, the one morning I was even like like had a shower in my clothes, busy tying my shoelaces, and I just like felt this wave of fatigue, and I just collapsed back in my bed. And I think I shoved my shoes open and fell asleep in my clothes, kind of thing. But at that point, I was thinking, no, something is wrong. Like, why am I sleeping a whole full day after a full night's sleep? Sometimes this was turning into 2 days. And then now I'm using up all my sick leave. After 10 months of work, I'd used up 30 days, which was meant to last me 3 years. So in that year of 2022, it was all gone. And then I had to have a chat with my HR and manager at work, and just say, like, I'm really frustrated. Like they called me and said, Chris, we're concerned about your performance and your attendance at work. Obviously, we were still in a hybrid model with post-COVID and lockdowns and things. So they were pretty understanding of it, but they're also like, no, you don't seem to be more as present as you used to be. And I said, I'm really struggling with some kind of what I think is chronic fatigue or exhaustion, but I have no idea like what's going on in my body. I didn't even think post-COVID or post-vaccine or anything. And so I went, the first time I heard the term long COVID was actually after seeing a lady who does more gut health related work. And so she said, Chris, are you showing signs in your results that you've had glandular fever? And I said, no, that's weird. Like, I've grown up with herpes simplex virus, which is part of that, that umbrella of viruses, I guess. But um, like glandular fever. So I think you guys call it Epstein-Barr virus overseas, but I've said like, no, I would have known if I had glandular fever, because like I had no swelling in my lymph nodes or my neck here or anything. That's usually I would associate that with. And then she says, I think you've got some kind of post-viral fatigue condition, which doctors are now coining this term long COVID, and then that can, long COVID covers a bunch of things, but there's very severe cases and there's less severe cases. There's also what I call hybrid cases, where I believe there's a role that the vaccines played in causing an injury to my body, or a change. And I believe the virus has also done something. So, yeah, that's kind of, so I don't want to go on too long, but that's basically in short how I came to figure out this term long COVID. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's great. I was over here giggling at one point, not because it's funny, but because I love your term pancake day. It's such
Yeah.
a, I have had that
Yeah.
experience of, the exhaustion is just overtakes you and you have to be flat. And
Mm, mm.
it's such a uncomfortable experience, but that's such a fun little word to use for such an
Yeah.
uncomfortable experience. I like that.
Yeah.
A pancake day. Wow, so that's interesting. And you said that was a friend of yours, the gut health doctor, that told you about long COVID, or
Oh,
was that
sorry,
just
sorry. No,
somebody that you
so
were
this
seeing?
is actually a physician who,
Okay.
I can't say she's a qualified GP per se or general practitioner, but she specializes in something called biomeridian practitioning, which is basically working out intolerances in your body. She uses this system, a computer system with these electrodes that you hold, and it sends certain signals through your body, and based on those results and energy levels, I think. At first, I was a bit skeptical of it. I was like, no, this seems a bit like airy fairy to me, like one of those gimmicky like science doctor things. But the reason I trust Center is that she's helped close friends of mine who struggle with ME/CFS to recover by changing their diets and improving gut health and working with intolerances in the body. Another friend I have who struggles with Crohn's disease. So that's quite a serious thing where you get those. I don't know if the person would have to correct me, but I think it's ulcers all the way throughout your entire intestinal tract. And so it's quite severe, and you really need to be very careful with what you put in your body, diet-wise. So Center has helped both of these people. So I definitely trust her opinion on that. And, she's not going to be able to give you all the answers, but just to know that term was super a bit of a relief, thinking, okay, cool, I'm sort of on the right track to figure out what's going on in my body. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's so interesting because people, I think, that haven't experienced something like this think it's so odd when we get excited over a diagnosis or a term, because it's not that I want something to be wrong with me. I really don't. But when you know
Yeah.
something is wrong and there's something going on and you feel like a crazy person because you don't know how to explain what's going on and there's no term for it, it's really helpful to have that long COVID or post-viral fatigue syndrome or something that gives you the, oh, there is something happening here, and now I can better learn how to treat it and how to go forward. So
Mm.
that's really interesting. Did you have any other, like, what was your journey like through the healthcare system? You obviously landed with someone who told you about long COVID eventually. Did you have any other doctors along the way, or people that, told you you're stressed or you have
Mm.
anxiety or something like that?
Not to be honest, not in that sense. To be honest, I I have experience of depression and anxiety prior to the pandemic, so I know a lot of people have been struggling with mental health since having a devastating chronic disease or a vaccine injury or something similar to that, even death in the family from vaccine or COVID itself. And there's that side of things, but I feel like the mental health side of things wasn't the hardest part for me because I already had experience with that since my 20s. And basically, to answer your question, I'd gone to a GP or general practitioner, as we call them here in South Africa. I don't know if it's the same overseas, but I actually initially had the suspicion maybe it's my iron levels, because as a teenager I'd had experiences of what they call what's low iron deficiency called anemia. There we go.
Anemia, yeah.
My brain fog. I have to like think much harder than I used to have to. Anemia. So I used to take these like beetroot tablets to help with my iron. I was like, whoa, these are gross. And my mom would like, no, say no, they're good for you. Take them. Da, 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 da. And then one friend said, no, eat a steak, a red steak. That's good once in a while. Cool, cool, cool. Anyway, so I thought it was my iron levels. Went to the GP. He tested my blood, and they came back fine. I thought, no, that's strange. And then from there, I just kind of left it, and I thought, okay, maybe I just need some vitamin B or da 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 da. One day I fall asleep at work, like literally almost about to collapse in a meeting. And I thought, no, this is crazy. Like, I've slept well this whole week. I thought I'd be fine at work. And I'm like feeling like I've taken a really strong sleeping tablet or something like that. So I drove through to a company called the Ivy Bar in Stellenbosch, where I work. And I actually they plug a drip into your arm for like an hour, and they just give you a cocktail of vitamins or whatever you choose on the menu, basically. Really, really great products. They're very expensive though. So that did help me. But those are my two experiences of like trying to figure out what's going on, because I know it's long COVID in a sense, but I don't know how to treat it. Do I just supplement up and go down that rabbit hole of spending thousands every month on supplements, which is a very dangerous rabbit hole to go down, and I'm sure many listeners have probably done that themselves. And eventually, actually, the answer that helped me get a bit closer to figuring out how to treat it was actually speaking to my CEO, who was just checking in on me, and because he knew I'd been like taking a lot of sick days, unpaid leave eventually. And he says, go see this doctor, Yaku Loebscher. And he's based in Stellenbosch. which is a miracle because it's like 10 minutes from my work. And he treats long COVID using triple therapy, which I can say just as a disclaimer, it's not guaranteed to fix everyone. But in my case, I think at that point you're so desperate after missing, like, I'm missing probably 2 days of work a week, at least, because it's just, and that's just from fatigue. I'm sleeping the whole day. This is not like I just am overwhelmed and want to rest at home.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I go to see Yaku, and he does a test with the Stellenbosch University and a group called Biocode, which is run by Resia Pretorius and another lady who I've now misplaced the name in my brain. But anyway, sorry,
That's okay.
brain fog is real.
It
And
is.
basically, I got blood tests done with them, and they pick up these little microclots that are causing endothelial damage, which is your blood vessels. So all your arteries, veins, throughout your body, even to your brain, you've got blood vessels running everywhere. And their theory or synopsis is that the spike proteins in COVID, as well as spike protein from the vaccines, are doing damage to endothelial lining of certain individuals. I can't say exactly why. Is it your blood type, genetics? I don't know if they know that for sure yet. But for some reason, yeah, there's a damage that's being done basically to your endothelium, and that's causing your oxygen and nutrients to not transfer correctly around your body as they used to prior to this condition, obviously. So that's basically his understanding of the endothelial and blood vessel side of the condition. So yeah, I did 10 months of triple therapy with Yaku, and it really helped my fatigue and my mental cognition, I'd say. I felt sharper at work, more like, oh, I know facts. I feel like more like myself. But again, every drug and every medication you take always has a side effect or something that might impact you negatively. It depends on the person as well. Obviously, the risk of severe bleeding from triple therapy or 3 blood thinners and or you've got your the basic anticoagulants. And sorry, I feel like I'm rambling a bit here, but
No,
the
it's
point
very
is that,
interesting.
yeah, the blood thinning helps thin those microclots out, but also it's just thinning the blood enough that it gives the chance for your blood vessels to start healing. So in these results, I've also seen not just the microclots and these big clumps, um, which are actually microscopic to your eye, but on this microscope, they can pick them up, and it's abnormal for normal clotting physiology in the body. But what they also show in these results is endothelial debris. So I can see little pieces of like what looks like skin or little lines of the endothelium that's actually been damaged and obviously started to heal. But so like I said, the downside of the medication, unfortunately, is that you can have severe bleeds. So if you pick something on your face, or say you like scratch something on your back, you'll bleed through the plasters, through your sheets, basically, and you have to just put pressure on it. There's nothing, no amount of plasters will will stop the bleeding, unfortunately. So I had some cases of that where I'd picked myself by mistake or done something, had a nosebleed that wouldn't stop for half an hour, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, nothing too serious. But it also has an impact on your immune system. So I got flu 4 times last year, and then after 10 months, I actually was just like, I don't know if this is helping me as much as I wanted to. And there were some other protocols and things I wanted to try. So basically, I stopped the blood thinning after 10 months. Yeah. Sorry, I'll stop there. Otherwise, I'm going to go on for ages.
No. Are you secretly a scientist on top of being a cyclist, and you're a musician too,
Mm.
right? Are you secretly a scientist as well? Because you
I am
sound like a
not. I
scientist.
am not, but I'm fascinated by health and information. I've enjoyed like Popular Mechanics magazines we have in South Africa growing up. I used to get those every month, and I love watching science videos on YouTube like Veritasium and things like that. I find those kind of facts very interesting. So it's almost like when you're struggling with a condition or disease yourself, you want to like go and research to pieces as much as the energy allows. Obviously, with a chronic disease, I don't have capacity to do a lot. I'm trying to manage a job, balance with my family and relationship, as well as run my YouTube channel and try and do podcasts. But yeah, sorry, a bit of background to me. I actually was gigging full time for a living before I was working in design, which I am now in product design. And Even that now, I can't do any gigs or go play shows or carry music gear and equipment around. I just don't have the energy reserves to do that. Yeah, yeah.
Takes a lot of exert. I know I scrolled too far back on your YouTube channel one day and ended up on the music side. You're very talented, so
Thank you so much, Lisa.
congratulations
Yeah,
on being so talented. But
thanks.
no, I can imagine that gigging takes a lot of energy and
Mm, mm,
exertion that probably might need to be turned elsewhere. I know I have a lot of hobbies and
hmm.
passions that I've kind of had to put on hold because they take a lot of my energy, and sometimes you have to direct that elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so you talked a little bit about the triple therapy. Have there been any other, treatments or practices or therapies that you've done that have been particularly helpful?
Yeah, so one thing I'll say to listeners, if you're struggling with long COVID and a vaccine injury or post-vax or post-COVID of any level, I guess, someone I came across was Peter McCullough, and he's a physician in the US who's quite famous and was quite, I think he started to put out some warnings about the vaccines, so he got kind of axed in the medical community a little bit because, why wouldn't vaccines be safe and that kind of stuff. And I think basically what he's come up with is a spike detoxification protocol. So basically trying to clear out spike protein or damage in the body from the spike protein. One of my theories is that long COVID is caused not just by the damage of the virus and, that knock-on effect of endothelial damage and all of that. I think there's disruptions to the microbiome of your gut from what my lived experience and doctors I've been speaking to. I also think I believe in my case there is residual spike protein. They use the word spike reservoir or persistent viral persistence, but I feel like there's just spike protein that's been left over in your tissues and your bloodstream around your body in every organ. That's my theory, at least. It's just a theory. But I believe my body is in a state of inflammation and just struggling with that residual spike. That's kind of my theory. But back to Peter McCullough, he suggested a spike detoxification protocol, which is nattokinase and bromelain and curcumin, I think. I think it's one of those. And I've tried a variation of that. Just to explain to listeners who don't know about those, nattokinase is a fermented soybean enzyme that comes from the soybean dish that they have in Japan, I think it is. And that enzyme is very good at actually thinning the blood. And there's also a variant of that called serrapeptase, which is actually a tablet form of an enzyme that's derived from the bacteria in silkworm guts, I think, so, or in the silkworm saliva. And that's interesting because they use it to break down the cocoon when they come out as moths once they've, done that process of, I forget what it's called. We learned it in school.
Biology way back. I don't
Anyways,
remember.
brain fog is real.
It
Anyways,
is.
but yeah, so I'm not doing the curcumin or bromelain because I think those are to do with anti-inflammatories and those kind of benefits, which is good. I'm actually doing nattokinase and serrapeptase at the same time. I think nattokinase is more of a blood thinning agent, whereas serrapeptase, as I understand it, is more of a proteolytic, so it dissolves proteins in the blood. So I'm hoping that a combination of those two can help break down some of these amyloid fibrin microclots in my blood and then get my immune system and endothelial lining healed and working a bit better. But sorry, on top of that, I didn't mention that I'm trying to do a quarter disprin every day, recommended from Yaku when I was doing the triple therapy. I added it on top of the triple therapy because he was worried that I wasn't getting far better as fast as he'd hoped. So a quarter disprin every day. It's basically aspirin. I don't know if you have the disprin brand in the US or overseas. And then I'm also doing what's the other stuff now? I'm also trying more gut health related protocols now, and I've done a series of antibiotics, and I've even tried ivermectin, which I know is quite controversial in the medical industry. But I'm not saying that like that has helped me, but I'm doing it as almost like checking the box to cover my bases, because I think people understand when you in a state of being bedbound for a year or two, you're desperate and you'll almost try anything you can. My only limit really is money, and
Mm-hmm.
that's and if I had all the money in the world, I would fly to Germany. I would try the HELP apheresis, which is like dialysis, cleaning the blood, getting rid of
I
the
read
clots,
about
pumping it
that.
back
Yeah.
in. I would try everything I can if I had the money to do so. But yeah, right now, like I said, I'm doing those more natural enzyme protocols. And another reason for that, not just trying all the options, is that the triple therapy is very expensive. You're talking $75 a month at least just for the blood thinning. And obviously when you're in a stage of a condition like this, ME/CFS, long COVID, anything, a vaccine injury, you can't work at your normal capacity. So your finances are squeezed. You have no energy to do anything else. So you're spending all your money trying to get better so you can work, and it's just a big mess like that. So I'm trying to get better on a budget is basically the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Better on a budget. I like it. And it really is. It's such a balance of I have limited energy, but I want to spend all this energy learning and seeing what's out
Mm,
there that could help me because I'm sick of feeling this way. But also,
yeah.
I can hardly work, so I don't know how much money I have to spend on these things that may or may not work for me. And then
Mm,
when you do try things, it's like, okay, all the energy it takes to keep track of what I've been doing and how I've been feeling based on different things. It really is such a complex illness. And it's been
mm.
really interesting to hear you talk about that side of things. Um, what would you say as far as your typical daily activities or routines? What has changed the most since you've developed long COVID?
Yeah, I think definitely my energy capacity. Um, I also have what I think is endothelial or sorry, vascular inflammation because I have these body aches and pains all around my body. I thought it was just like muscle aches and pains, but I suspect it's to do with that residual spike protein that I mentioned that's causing inflammation that's like ongoing. So I struggle with those kind of pains. To help with that, I've cut out sugar completely from my diet. So that was since Christmas actually last year. So only about a couple of weeks now, but that's helped my pain levels a lot. Um, See, now I've even forgotten the question that you asked. You
Oh, you're
just
fine. We
remind
need a
me.
t-shirt that says brain fog is real.
Yeah,
We need to
I
put that on a
agree.
hat or a t-shirt or something.
Yeah. So how has my life changed? It came back to me. Okay.
Yes, look at
Um,
that.
yeah, I unfortunately was taking unpaid leave to the point that I was losing a significant portion of my salary every month. So I've how my life has changed is that I've gone down from 5 days a week at work to 3 days a week at the office. My company and management have been very understanding with the condition. So I only work Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then Mondays and Thursdays I don't see as like my holiday days to go out and party and do stuff. I don't have capacity and energy for that, but I use those days to rest and just stay in bed and try and manage my energy output. A lot of people in the chronic illness community will know the term pacing. So managing my energy. Someone will say, "Hey, Chris, come out for a surf, or let's go for a jog around the park," and I'll say, "Sorry, like I'll come and join for a coffee." But even driving, looking at a screen, all these things use up energy, and you start to really become, I think, conscious of that. And my life in other ways has changed a lot because I can no longer exercise. Well, I used to cycle every weekend 30, 40 kilometers, and that's changed in a sense. And I mean, I grew up also in a church community, so that's been important to me to have time with your friends, social time, family time, community, in a spiritual sense. But all of that I lost for probably a year. I didn't go to church for 6 months, 7 months consistently. And most of my small groups during the week I missed. A lot of friendship get togethers, a lot of outdoor activities I missed. And I think that's a horrible part about having a condition, a vaccine injury, whatever it is, you just can't be social like you used to be. And the knock-on effect of that is obviously you feel depressed, you feel lonely, you feel misunderstood. And even though it's like a very real thing for you, everyone around you, because it's not a physical injury like you've broken your leg or you've been bitten by a shark and you've got the scars, it's like, oh, like you look fine to me, like what's the deal? why haven't I seen you in so long, and why are you missing work so often, So I think I hoped for empathy from people, colleagues and family and friends, but I don't say, I think I was a bit naive expecting people to understand, because it's been really tough. Like, people aren't very empathetic to an illness or condition they can't see. Yeah.
That is so true. Have you found anything particularly helpful in either communicating with friends and family and loved ones to let them know what's been going on? Or has there been anything that's kind of helped you, I guess, with the grief that comes along with a chronic
Mm,
condition?
mm. I think like yourself, just starting a podcast and a video podcast series, and sharing more information and bringing awareness to long COVID and other chronic diseases has helped me find purpose, outside of my work, outside of exercise and social and everything else I used to do in my pre-pandemic days. I found purpose in that, and I think that's something that keeps me going, is wanting to make content, even though I can't like do a video every week consistently. I really try to create content surrounding that, because it gives me that creative outlet as well, in a sense. Like, I used to put it into music and doing covers and writing songs and things and doing gigs, and now it's I see like a bigger picture of life, and how your health is like the only thing that really matters. Obviously everything else does matter, but if your health goes, it's hard to focus on anything else. Yeah. I also just lost track of the question as well
No,
that you
no,
just
that
asked.
was
I
perfect.
apologize.
No, yeah, that is such a real thing. I sometimes think back to some sort of, trivial things in life that would bother you or that you just kind of take for granted almost. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, what I would give to just have one day where I open my eyes and I feel rested, I
Mm,
never prior to this was thankful, well, maybe I don't know, super thankful in the mornings for waking up feeling rested, It's just all the little things
yeah.
that it's like, wow, when your health isn't there, it's hard to enjoy a lot of other things in life.
Yeah.
Um, based on your experience, and maybe healthcare professionals that you've seen, what advice would you give to healthcare providers as far as how to communicate with their patients, how to make them feel heard, and just
Mm,
things that you think might be helpful for a provider who maybe isn't as well informed about these sort of conditions?
yeah. As far as I've experienced, um, South Africa, the doctors seem to know each other. Like, if I go see a GP in Stellenbosch, she'll know of Yaku, or a gastroenterologist that I've seen as well for my gut health and microbiome tests and things. He also knows of Yaku. So it seems like the medical doctor community are quite well networked and connected. So I do appreciate that they understand everyone's different roles. But what I did come to understand is that Yaku is an expert in blood thinning and blood vessels and all of that vascular system stuff. But he's not going to be able to help you with seeing, oh, you're actually missing a whole bunch of gut bacteria that the vaccine and COVID has wiped out completely. And someone else will have to assist me in that capacity. So I haven't felt too gaslit, to be honest. Like, I know that's a thing people experience, especially in the vaccine injured community. I haven't experienced that too much,
Good.
but it, gaslighting in the sense of, oh, you got the vaccines, you're vaccine injured, long COVID isn't real. That I've experienced, which is frustrating.
I've
Um,
seen it in the comments on your videos, actually.
yeah,
I
it's
was going to ask you
it's
about that too.
I get so much of that. Yeah. But back to the question. Yeah, I felt pretty helped in the medical community. I think it's more from the point of, when you have a condition, you have no idea who to talk to. And for a year and a half, I just carried on taking supplements and things before I knew about triple therapy and Yaku and those things. And I was looking online to see what people were trying. People were doing all kinds of CAT scans and MRIs, and they're saying, no, your body's fine, everything looks clear. But you have to really find those specialists who can help you in that area that you're struggling. And I think that's the hard part. Is not um, like going and doing the treatment. It's more like figuring out who the right person is to speak to. And I've had to go to a doctor and then speak to a friend who's also got long COVID and said, oh, try this guy and then try that guy. And it's a bit of trial and error, I'd say. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's a really good point about it's nice to hear that the networking is good there because I feel like sometimes there's such a disconnect in that sort of interdisciplinary collaboration. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
a really important component. I feel like we could do a lot better with that here in the States, but
Mm,
it's
mm,
nice to hear
mm.
that that is something that is maybe good over there that's actually positively impacted your experience. So it's good to kind of hear those things.
Yeah.
As far as someone who maybe is newly diagnosed with something like long COVID or kind of maybe feeling symptoms and struggling to find answers, do you have a piece of advice that you would give those people?
Mm, mm. I'd say realize that everyone is unique. That's something I've had to realize is, like I said, triple therapy might help me. It might not help someone else. So I can say, I take this supplement, I feel great, but it might be counterproductive or harmful to someone else. So I've had to learn that in my case, I have to share everything as an experience that I'm going through and say, like, think about like we were all born with different genetics, blood types, you know. I have certain allergies to certain things that someone else might not have, but an encouragement from my side is what I've experienced was that deep loneliness of, like I said, missing out on even going to church and community and friends. Just you lose touch because people don't understand what you're going through when you've just been lying in bed for a year, you know. And on the weekends, I would go visit my girlfriend, but I wasn't able to go out with her and see her friends and go on dates and things. I would just stay in bed till 5, 6 in the afternoon every like Saturdays, Sundays for a good year, and that was incredibly tough for us. But sorry, back to the point for your question is something I would say to someone who's newly diagnosed is try and figure out your, like, I guess the root cause as best as you can. You might not understand, but keep a track record of everything that's happening to you week by week. Like note down your symptoms. I started doing that for notes. I would say I missed work this day and these are the symptoms I was experiencing that day, and I try to keep a track record. But beyond keeping notes and obviously monitoring your symptoms, I'd say try and connect with others online. That's something I've found very helpful, is connecting with people on Instagram and YouTube and X. You know, most of the people I've had on the podcast are connections through social media platforms. And yeah, I don't know if it's helpful to someone who's in a very difficult space, lying in bed all day and feeling debilitated and just they've lost their past life completely. It's like it's incredibly overwhelming as well. But yeah, that's something that I found useful, is to try and connect with other people's online and other people. Sorry, yeah. Um, I don't know if that answered the question very well. But,
No, absolutely. And
mm,
it's really refreshing to hear that also something you said earlier about kind of shifting what you pour your energy into and finding a new sense of purpose. I think that's so important because
mm,
you really do. You kind of like grieve this past life that you had and these your goals and aspirations that maybe they're not the things that are currently serving your body in the best way. So you
mm,
kind of have to
mm,
shift your focus into things that, like you said about kind of the pacing and the radical rest that you do on your days off. I'm sure there
mm,
are many other things you would rather do than
mm,
strictly rest several days a week, but you've kind of identified that, well, rest is now the thing that is serving my body in a positive manner. So it kind of sometimes you just gotta do that, even if it's maybe not what you want to do. So
mm, mm.
that's really interesting to hear. Do you have anything like going forward? I guess we've talked a little bit about purpose. Do you have any little personal like goals or milestones that you're trying to hit, whether it be in general life or in your health?
Mm. Um, right now, obviously battling a chronic condition and I guess having anxiety for the future about my work security, you know, my salary, my income month to month, all of those things made me feel very stuck in the last few years. And actually, my small group leader last year, his name is Ran, also has some experience battling post-COVID fatigue. And he just said to me, Chris, like, at some point he just decided to carry on, like, and he didn't let it stop him dating, getting married, and so that was super encouraging to me. He's like, just carry on and make a choice, carry on with your girlfriend. It doesn't mean you have to break up because you're battling a chronic disease. Some people would take that route and say, I don't want to um I don't want to be the person weighing down my partner in this relationship, because now I'm not capable of being a functional partner, and a husband one day and a boyfriend in my case. But yeah, he said he just chose to carry on, and that really encouraged me to get engaged to my girlfriend. And it's scary because, like I said, there is obviously real anxiety for, can I provide for her as a husband? And not that I'm um like I must be the breadwinner and I think that there's an equal share in a marriage that makes it successful. And my partner, she's also works as well. And so I feel that weight of, I'd love to be able to bring an equal share to the marriage, if that makes sense, or to the relationship. And that's a goal for me, basically. Sorry, to answer your question, is to get married and just to carry on with life. On a practical kind of work career side, I would love to grow my YouTube channel. And it's weird because I used to have this dream of being a famous musician and touring around the world like Ed Sheeran or John Mayer, one of those guys. And now it's kind of like that dream is still there, like very faintly, but I just see it as, okay, like that wasn't for me, but maybe I can use my skills and my talents and creativity in a different way. So one of my goals is to grow my podcast and YouTube channel in for the good purpose of helping others with chronic diseases and encouraging others around the world, as well as just learning myself. I find it super inspiring just to chat to other people online. I love talking to others and meeting new people, and that's something that gives me a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment. Yeah.
Wow, you just said so many good things that I don't even know where to begin. I like that you went into kind of the relationship aspect and having that sort of partnership because, and oh my gosh, the brain fog, I had a really good point with this and it's completely escaped me. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. But it is such a struggle because you have this kind of perception about what your role should look like as a partner or a spouse. And sometimes those things kind of change, and it's hard to come back to the remembering that you are still like such a valuable human being. Like, even if your capacity is different or you're not doing all the things that you think you maybe should be doing, like you still bring value to this world and to your relationship. And just because I really resonated when you're talking about, oh, but will I be able to provide this, or can I do this? Like, there's still so many things about you and every single human being out there that are so unique and special and worthy and valuable. And just because you can't maybe complete a task that you wanted to or provide in a certain way, it doesn't mean that, your worth isn't there. So I really like that you kind of talked about that, because it's really important to remember. I have to remind myself of that all the time. I've been struggling with POTS symptoms, where my heart rate goes crazy and I get really dizzy. And I was trying to just vacuum the other day, and oh my gosh, this is not me saying that like women should cook and vacuum and clean. I'm not saying that at all. But like, I like to be a contributor and like tidy up and, so I was trying to do some vacuuming and I just got so just dizzy. I had to just sit on the floor and I like couldn't pick up the vacuum cleaner, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go lay down. I can't cook dinner. And it's not like these are things that I have to do, but they're little things that I would like to be able to do, and something that I would like to kind of bring to that. And it's really frustrating when your body's not agreeing with the things that you want to do. And I had a big just emotional. Oh my gosh, I can't even vacuum. This is horrible. Like, if
Mm.
I can't vacuum, what can I do? I'm worthless. And then,
Yeah.
Lisa, just calm down for a minute. It's
Yeah.
okay. You know, it's hard to take that step back sometimes. And so that really resonated with me. I completely understand. Is there anything else that you haven't had the chance to talk about yet, or just
Mm.
anything that's kind of been impactful in your journey or that you'd like to cover that you think might be beneficial for others to hear?
Yeah, just touching on what you said, actually, I think first two things. One, this is on the like the capacity and the identity thing, but the second one I want to talk about is back to that vaccine and long COVID and that tension there. But yeah, first on that point, I think identity is such a struggle for anyone. Like, for myself, I've got a spiritual and a faith and my identity in that, and that helps me a lot. But it's like I've lost now my identity in my exercise, my social capacity. I've lost that. I'm no longer a cyclist. I'm no longer a musician who gigs and plays shows, and that the point of that is that there's a major part of grief that comes, and that depressive feeling and that loneliness and the mourning, like the sense of loss of your former life. And that's something that I've also been encouraged myself from talking to others, is take that grief seriously and allow yourself to grieve and allow yourself to mourn in the same way you'd think it's like not good to cry. Oh, I mustn't cry. I mustn't be all emotional after I've gone through a breakup. I must be strong and get out there and carry on. There's actually such a healthy thing of grieving and mourning and crying it out until you've processed, until you've mourned it properly. And something that helped me through a breakup and a difficult um, time in my life with a relationship tension was that the psychologist I went to see said, Chris, you are mourning the loss of your ideal. You're mourning the loss of this vision and idea in your head that you had of what reality should look like, your work, your relationship. In this case, it was the relationship and how that should look. And you're mourning the loss of your ideal, of what you had in your head and always dreamed about, to what the reality is. And that mismatches what is the grief and the depression, the anxiety, all of that. And that was super helpful to me, because I realized a lot of the pain we experience as human beings is often in our heads and our minds and our expectations versus the reality. So I expected to be healthy and like moving forward in my career, progressing, getting a raise, moving to a new company, earning a better salary, buying a flat. I hoped for all of those things. And now my reality is not that. I will probably be renting for the foreseeable future for a long
Me
time.
too.
And, and like now you're ending up, I have to go live with my folks for 6 months because I can't afford to pay for this blood test and that like stool sample and this microbiome check and all these things. And that's a very real reality. But the point is, take the grief seriously and allow yourself to grieve that, and surround yourself with others who can help support you, your family, if it's your church, your small group, your community, your friendship circles, whatever that looks like in your life. Yeah. Okay. So then
One thing on
this,
that note,
yeah. So
I'll give
you go,
you.
you jump in.
I feel like I just need to clip that and play it on repeat like every day because it's sometimes like logically I know that it's okay. You know that
Mm,
it's okay to feel the things you need to feel and to grieve, but sometimes it's hard to just believe that, hearing it
yeah.
being told to you as opposed to just internalizing that. Sometimes,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
the cool kids say these days, it just hits different. So
Mm,
it really
mm,
is.
mm,
It's good and so refreshing to hear that because I feel like I've had those thoughts, but hearing them spoken out loud is completely different.
mm.
And you had another point that you were going to talk about
I'm
where
glad,
I
Lisa.
think that
That's encouraging for me as well. Um, yeah, sorry, I just wanted to touch on what you mentioned earlier. So my first video I shared on the channel it says long COVID, the disease that changed my life. And a lot of people, most of the comments are like, you should have said the vaccine that changed your life or the vaccine that ruined your life, what, that whole spiel. And there is a tension where I found that based on what you believe about the healthcare system, about vaccines, if you're anti-vax, someone would say to me, no, it's not long COVID. The virus didn't do anything. It's the vaccine, obviously, because I'm anti-vax, da da da. And, there is validity in that. I don't believe the mRNA vaccines are 100% safe. I can't say they're going to harm 100% of the people who took them. Like, obviously not. But I can't say they're definitely not going to injure, anyone in that group of people who took them. So the point is that based on I'd say to people, try and be open-minded that you might have a vaccine injury. It's those are real, those are happening. I've spoken to people firsthand who've never had COVID. They have a vaccine injury. There is also long COVID, post-viral damage from the virus itself. That can be chronic fatigue. It can be vascular inflammation, body aches. Like I've got headaches. Or there's like 200 different symptoms that I don't even experience half of them. And then there's also your you got vaccine deaths happening, as far as I've seen online from different people sharing stories, and then you've got deaths from the virus as well. And the point is, be open-minded and understand there's a lot of different aspects in COVID and the pandemic and the post-pandemic, and see that there are vaccine injuries. There is long COVID. It's very real. I have multiple friends who are suffering post viral effects without ever touching a vaccine. And then you've got combinations of both, which I call the hybrid case, which I believe is my case, although I do believe most of the damage is from the virus itself. But that's just my point, is that try and have an open mind to see that there can be cases and validity in all those cases. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but yeah, that's kind of the point, is people will say, I'm anti-vax, therefore, or they won't even say it. They'll just say, it's definitely the vaccine. And a friend of mine has had it said to her, oh no, you didn't take the vaccine. That's why you've got long COVID. Ha ha, you should have took the vaccine, So you've got elements of both sides, like trying to justify their beliefs and maybe making a conclusion on a bias of their own. Yeah, that's the
That
point.
is so well said, because it's so true. People really will kind of take your experience and then see it from a lens that fits their beliefs or their agenda,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it can be very harmful. I got a comment, I don't know on what video it was. Somebody commented something along the lines of, this can't be real. Isn't it funny that everyone on the left says that this is long COVID and everyone on the right says that it's a vaccine injury and it's just all made up and this is ridiculous.
Uh,
I was like, oh my
yeah,
gosh. And the people that are like, well, I had long COVID and I wasn't in bed for months. I just push through and
yeah.
get up and go to work. Like, people can't conceptualize that everybody's experience of long COVID can look different. And you could have long
Mm,
COVID symptoms that are way different from somebody else's long COVID symptoms. I mean, it's a
yeah.
complex, multi-systemic illness, it's not going to impact everybody the same. So
Mm,
open-mindedness is so important. And even
yeah.
knowing that you kind of have to hear those things and take them with a grain of salt sometimes, because
Mm,
it kind of puts blame almost on the individual. Like if you're saying, oh, you took
yeah.
a vaccine, this
Yeah.
is why this is happening. It's like,
Mm,
it's not your fault that you're sick? Like, and people say things like that, and it's like,
yeah.
oh, I did this to myself. I messed up.
Mm,
No, no, stop it.
yeah.
Like,
I
it's,
would say actually on that note, yeah, like with the open-mindedness, I'd also say, I guess I don't consider myself severely vaccine injured. I have friends and people I've had on the podcast who are, and I'd say on behalf of that community and them, I'd say to listeners, if they can, if they do have an anti-vax kind of perspective, that's valid. You're allowed to have your own opinion, but I'd say choose kindness when you talk about those people and you comment on their videos and their posts, because a lot of the people that I've spoken to, including myself, we did it not because we are so pro-vax and we have to do the right thing and whatever, but we just believed it was the best thing to do for our community, for ourselves. We thought we were protecting people, protecting our bodies. I've grown up with a pretty pro healthcare perspective in my head, and I'm still pretty pro health care in a sense, but I think I'm a bit more aware now that um, I need to have my own uh, like think for myself is basically the point. And just because the big pharma companies, say that something is safe, it doesn't mean it's necessarily 100% safe, because the government says, please get vaccinated. You're going to protect your community and save your grandpa and, stop the spread and all of that. I bought into that. And you could say, yeah, Chris, you were naive. Like, what an idiot. Why did you do that? But at the time, with all the fear surrounding the pandemic, thousands of people dying like every week, in South Africa and around the world, it felt like that was the right thing to do, was to get your vaccine. And I'd say to those listening, if you didn't get the vaccine and you are glad you didn't, and you are busy commenting on people who did get the vaccine as like, oh, you idiot, da da da. I'd say choose kindness, because a lot of the people that got them, including myself, just did it believing it was the right thing to do. And yeah, that it's a difficult space in post COVID, and like the fallout from the pandemic is enormous. Yeah.
It really is. At the time, actually, I I had gone quite a long time without getting the vaccine. I don't think I'd made it a year and a half post-pandemic, and I hadn't gotten it yet. And then I hit a point of grad school where I had to start working in hospitals and, to complete my education. And some of those hospitals required it. And, I was never like, oh, I'm never gonna get it. But I was also just like, if I don't have to put this in my body, like,
Mm.
I don't want to, But I got to the point where I was either, drop out of grad school or don't complete my graduate education that I'd already sunk, tens of thousands of dollars into thus far,
Yeah. Yeah.
or like, get it and keep going. So I got it, and I remember getting in a really big fight with someone who was really close to me at the time, and they were just like, I cannot believe that you would do that. How could you take the vaccine? Blah, blah, blah. It's so
Mm. Mm.
stupid. You're gonna harm yourself and your future children, and like just huge. And it's like, oh my gosh, what do you do in that situation? I'm about to go work in a hospital with a lot of severely immunocompromised people, and
Mm.
I want to make sure that I'm like my job working in healthcare, my intention is to help people and heal people. I don't want to go
Yeah.
into a hospital and put people more at risk because I didn't take a vaccine or something. So it is so hard
Yeah.
when people just berate
Mm.
you with their ideas. And I love what you said about choosing kindness, because we've talked several times today about finances. We've joked about money and how much
Mm.
things cost. It
Mm.
costs nothing to be a kind human being. Like, if
Yeah.
you're gonna
Yeah.
comment something to somebody, it costs $0 to choose a kind thing to say as
Yeah.
opposed to a horrible, mean, negative thing. And I feel like we really just, as a society and world, need to choose more of the kindness side. Because I don't know about you, if someone tells me something really harsh and rude and mean, or someone says something to me with kindness, I personally receive kindness better. Like, if someone says something kind, it causes me to think. I internalize it. When someone says something mean, I just, you know, I brush it off. I
Mm.
don't really give it any merit because their intention is to hurt, not help. So I feel like
Yeah.
from a communication aspect, kindness is always better too, because it's more well received and
Mm.
it's
Mm.
helpful. So yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, pleasure. Lisa, on that point, actually wanted to ask, so you were mandated to get vaccinated to work in hospitals, is that correct?
Yes, so
Mm.
I don't want to say that it's every hospital in the whole
Yeah.
country, but
Yeah.
in grad school, the way it works, we have these clinical rotations, and you have a coordinator at your school that places you at different hospitals. And it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to find placements. They have a whole cohort of students they're trying to find placements for. So I was already placed pretty last minute. It was maybe a month before the rotation was to start, which is pretty last minute for a lot of these things. Usually you get placed a year in advance or several months in advance. And I finally received a placement, and that placement, it was mandated, and they said, because there's the whole religious exemption thing, they said, well, you can file a religious exemption, but we're just not going to take you. Like, you're a student. We don't need you, We're kind of doing you a favor by hosting you and allowing you to come learn here. So, you can file a religious exemption, but we don't have to take you as a student because we don't need you. So that was a challenging time where it's like, what do you do,
I think that definitely frustrated me. Like, obviously I'm frustrated with the mandates, but I'm also more frustrated that the medical board and the government kind of said, initially, this is, if you take the vaccine, you won't spread it to someone else. You can't pass it on, and then you won't catch COVID. And then eventually I was like, oh no, you can catch COVID, but it's less severe. And oh no, you can actually transmit it, but it reduces the chance of transmission. And just those, like, not knowing the facts and not having the honest answer up front. Maybe they didn't know at the time, but it's just like, those things made me think, man, like, why did I take the vaccine? I thought I was going to protect my grandpa at home and, learning I could still transmit it to him, and I believed it would make my case less severe. As an asthma sufferer since I was a kid, I was very concerned about my lungs and, not being able to breathe. So that was another reason I took it. And just realizing, man, like, did it do more harm than it did good? And those are hard in hindsight, but at the time, like I said, I believed it was the best thing to do. But yeah, that's
it is, and it's interesting.
You live and you learn.
And a lot of people have different experiences. When I took it, I didn't have anything super crazy that happened, but I've had asthma my whole life as well. And after I got the vaccine, the only side effect I had was all of a sudden, like, I was wheezing, and I have very mild asthma. I don't typically have issues unless, the air is really, really bad, or sometimes when it gets really, really cold out, I start to wheeze a little bit. But typically, day to day, no asthma issues. After the vaccine, there was a period of 4 or 5 months where I was wheezing constantly. And it was middle of the summer, it's warm. It's not like nothing else changed, but I was wheezing. I was coughing all the time. I had to go on a triple steroid inhaler to kind of control my breathing. And I'm lucky that went away and it was pretty mild, but it's interesting, just the different things that kind of happen.
Yeah. I think it does something to your immune system. I can't say scientifically exactly what it does right now, but from my lived experience and from chatting to other GPs and functional doctors, gastroenterologists, I believe it's affected your gut health, your immune system in some way. That's my own opinion, at least. So no, yeah.
And
so
some
I was
people
gonna,
have... Huh?
yeah. So I was gonna ask quick. How long have you been battling long COVID, out of interest?
Well, this is an interesting story because if you asked me, so I got COVID initially, right around the first time that it was, I think it was early 2020, mid 2020, when I first got COVID. And this kind of goes to the point where people say, oh, well, I have long COVID, but I still get up and go to work. I had fatigue following that, not super severe crippling fatigue. I never felt quite energized after that. And it wasn't really bad. I just continued about my daily life. I continued in grad school. I was working a full-time job and a part-time job during grad school, so I just kept doing all my things, and I was tired all the time, but I was kind of like, oh, it's probably stress. It's probably just grad school. I'm doing a lot, whatever. So I kind of ignored it, and I just kept pushing. I was really determined to finish grad school. Like, that was my goal. I was gonna just push until I finished grad school. Now, we haven't gotten into like post-exertional malaise or anything yet in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
talk, but I don't know if what triggered my downturn in symptoms was a second COVID infection or if it was just a big PEM crash because I
Mm,
finished my final grad school rotation this past April. So I can't do
mm,
math. What is that? 7, 8 months ago? I don't know.
mm,
And I finished my rotation. The next day, I just crashed. I was sick. I had a fever. I was in
mm,
bed for weeks. I took an at-home COVID test and it was negative, but those can be kind of finicky sometimes.
yep.
So I had a fever. My limbs were heavy. I just could not move. I was stuck in bed for at least a week and a half. I could barely lift my head or open my eyes or eat. It was horrible. And after that, my symptoms have been way, way worse. I started developing kind of the potsy type things, the tachycardia and the dizziness and the lightheaded. The
Mm,
fatigue became crippling. I could do things like say I would do a workout. Um, I'd work out, I'd make it through the workout, but when I woke up the next morning,
mm,
couldn't even get out of bed. And I was in shape, I'd been working out consistently throughout
mm,
life up to that point. It wouldn't make sense for me to be so sore and tired. So all of a
yeah.
sudden I was like, wow, something something is not right. So I'm not sure if it was a second infection or if it was
Mm,
just I kind of had this mild long COVID and I just pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and then crashed and then my baseline just
yeah.
decreased tremendously.
Sure.
That I don't know for sure, but
That's
that is
interesting.
what happened. I know, yeah.
It's sad, man. Like I was hearing like mentions of like these long-term COVID symptoms on the radio, like maybe once or twice in like talk radio. And at the time I hadn't had COVID yet. So like I'm like, oh cool, whatever, like carry on with life, you know. And it's so it's the irony is like you don't care about something until you're suffering with it yourself as much, you
Right.
know. Oh, yeah. So like, yeah, March 2022. So I've now had it almost 3 years, but I've had a friend who's had it since the beginning of 2020. So they're going on almost 5 years now. You know, like, and this friend is unvaccinated. You know, and has debilitating fatigue. And someone I've actually helped connect with Yaku and start the triple therapy. I hope it'll help her in time, but again, there's no guarantees it will work the same for her as it's worked for me, you know. It didn't get me to 100%. Some people it can, some people it won't, you know, help. And yeah, it's a tough world where everyone's struggling at different times. I mean, someone might actually just get a COVID infection this year and then start developing long-term symptoms, you know, next year. And maybe they'll find this podcast and it'll be helpful to them. So, yeah, you
Right.
don't
I
know.
hope. And on the healthcare provider and rehab professional side, I think one of my big goals is a lot of, we don't really learn about. I attended a webinar the other day and
Mm-hmm.
it really frustrated me because it was about occupational therapy management of long COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't mention post exertional malaise one time in the whole presentation. And they
Wow.
talked a lot about energy conservation techniques and cognitive assessments and cognitive rehabilitation, which is all really important and can be very helpful as an OT trying to manage long COVID. And
Mm,
they said in the presentation, anyone who is an OT or PT who says we don't learn about long COVID in school, that's not accurate because we learn all these principles of energy conservation and we learn all these principles of cognitive rehabilitation, which is true. But what makes it so dicey and complex to apply to the long COVID population is that there is that post exertional malaise component, and there is a level of activity, both physical and cognitive, sensory input exertion, that is not safe because you
yeah.
can push people too far and then cause them to decline, kind of like what happened to me. Like you push,
Mm,
push, 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 a lot of OTPT do graded exercise therapy and, oh, let's just build up your tolerance. Well, you do too
mm,
much and then you crash and get worse, which is
yeah.
really what we want to avoid. And I feel like not a lot of
Mm,
providers know about that component because it's dangerous, really, but they don't know that that
Mm.
danger exists because it's
Yeah.
so odd and strange and different. So that's another one of my goals, is to really get that message out of how to do, because you want to do enough rehab that it's worth someone's time and money, but you don't want to push them so hard that it's making them worse as opposed to better. So it's a hard
Mm.
balance to strike, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out what that. And it's a different good amount of exercise for everybody, So
Mm.
it really is a tricky condition.
Yeah. Yeah, post-exertional malaise is very real. Um, Something I would say that I've had to learn the hard way is on the good days, you just want to go out and do everything. I remember the first day I woke up after starting triple therapy. It was 4 or 5 months in, and I woke up at 7 one morning. I'm like, whoa, I haven't got up at 7 in like a year. Cool, let's go do something. And I went to go coffee, and then I went to the shops, and then I went to and then the next day I was like in bed the whole day. And I learned the hard way, like just because you're feeling good that day, you must like doesn't mean you go and do everything. You must actually pace yourself and be careful of how you like use that energy up so you can actually maintain that consistency over time. Yeah.
Right. And I really liked what you said earlier about, you have the days that you work and then you have the days that you don't work. And on the
Yeah. Yeah.
days that you don't work, it's not like it's a holiday. You're very intentional about the pacing and
Yeah.
the resting.
Yeah.
And that is such an important component because, and resting is resting. Like, resting is not, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff on the computer and I'm going to like watch all, because all of that
Mm.
stimulation and sensory input and that is all takes energy and is some form
Yeah.
of exertion. And that's
Yeah.
hard to realize too, because there was a period of time after I graduated a few months ago, I was studying for my board exams. And
Mm-hmm.
all I did from the time I woke up in the morning till the time I went to bed was study. And it's not like you feel like you're doing a lot because I'm just sitting there reading material, clicking, you know,
Mm.
test questions. I felt like I was sitting all day long and doing nothing
Mm.
except reading. But I was so exhausted. And
Mm.
my symptoms would get so much worse the more I cognitively exerted myself. I would
Mm.
get PEM from that. And I didn't even,
Sure.
sometimes you don't realize just, oh, sure, I sat at a table all day and just
Yeah.
read, but
Mm.
that's still energy and that's still exertion and it can still
Yeah.
make you worse. So it's
Mm.
really interesting, things that you just kind of figure out through trial and error.
Mm. Mm.
Well, I guess last but not least,
Yeah.
where can listeners find you or follow your journey if they want to connect with you or learn more
Yeah.
about what you're doing?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned earlier, my YouTube channel was initially started to, put out some songs that I was writing or a music video or talking about my studio that I was starting and covers and things. And that was just a passion that I had for since I was a kid, really, to make music and write songs and play gigs. And yeah, I've just seen the shift of not being able to do that anymore. But um, I just play guitar for the love of it now at home. I don't have energy to go play a gig, and go to the studio and promote songs and that whole thing that comes along with that. But my YouTube channel is now purely for my health interviews and podcasts and sharing a bit about my journey. I'm going to try and make more content on what I'm doing specifically to help people, if that helps them at all. And so to answer your question, sorry, I'm on YouTube, X, and Instagram at Chris Werge. Yeah, so Werge. It's a Danish surname, in case you're wondering, and so it is a tricky one to pronounce. But
I was
I
going to say,
often
for
say to
my US
people,
people out there, it
yeah.
is not spelled how it sounds.
So I'd say think of the star sign Virgo, and then just say Virga, like with an A.
Mhm.
My nickname in high school was Virga Burger. Not my favorite nickname in the world, but that also is what will help people remember it because it rhymes well. Yeah.
I won't call you that. We'll tell the listeners
Thank you, Lisa. I
not
appreciate
to
it.
pop into your DM saying, "Hi, Virgo." Okay,
Yeah.
so Instagram, YouTube, X.
Yeah.
Great.
Formerly
Okay,
Twitter.
wonderful.
Thanks, Elon.
Formerly Twitter, yes. I remember when that change happened and I was like, "Are you on X?" I was like, "What? What?
Yeah, I
What?"
kept calling it Twitter for a long time. Yeah.
I'll have
But
to follow
Elon
you
is a
there.
fellow South African. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, it's one of
Really?
our name dropping claim to fame is South Africans who say, Elon Musk, he was born here.
No way. See, I had no
Yeah,
idea. I still
yeah,
don't really understand Twitter super well.
yeah.
I need to learn to tweet better. I never know what
Mm,
to say. I go on there and I look at what other people say. And
yeah.
sometimes if I'm feeling really, really fancy, I'll repost something that someone else said. But I
I,
still haven't learned the art of
yeah,
tweeting or Xing
yeah.
very well.
I mean, I can't say I know Elon well at all, but and he's quite controversial in the online world, I guess, and in his businesses. But I just like that he's very pro speech. So like you can go on X and you can say something, and obviously like we're not talking about pornography now and threats of violence against people and things like that. That's obviously illegal and shouldn't be on any platform. But I like that he'll let you say something, and most of the vax injured community I've connected with are on X because they're not censored, they're not removed because they're posting something against Pfizer or AstraZeneca or whoever the company is, you know. And I think it's good that that platform allows people to have a voice and share their opinions, you know, without being censored and removed from platforms. Yeah.
Right. And share their lived experiences. Because
Yeah.
a lot of these people aren't even saying like, you should not take this, like you should not do. A lot of it is just, this is what happened to me. Like I want you to know
Yeah.
that I took
Yeah.
this and this is my experience of what happened.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why, like that's censored on so many platforms. It's just your own personal lived experience. Like what
Yeah.
happened to freedom of speech? So
People,
yeah,
people, it's so funny to me because it's like, I was speaking to Alex Mitchell a few months ago. He's someone from Scotland who actually had to have an amputation because of the severe blood clots that developed in his legs after an AstraZeneca shot. And he says people like label him anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist. Wow, he's like, no, like I took the bloody thing. Like, you know, I was pro-vax when I took
right.
it. Like that's why I took it. So how am I an anti? Like obviously he's sharing his lived experience of now he regrets taking it and he doesn't recommend doing it, obviously. But you know, it's just the irony. People, yeah, yeah. I mean, but fair enough. Like before the pandemic, I was very like, oh, if you're an anti-vaxxer, you're some like funny mother overseas and you're a conspiracy theorist. And I
Like
also
tin
had
hat
those
wearing.
more like conservative views. And now I'm thinking, actually, since the pandemic, one of the positives, I guess, of this whole thing is that I've learned to think a bit more for myself and think, actually, I can't just trust Pfizer because they're a multi-million-dollar corporation that everything is safe, you know. I have to test it and proceed with caution, you know. Um, yeah. Anyways.
That is such a good point. Proceed with caution. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I didn't say it on here because I will input it later, but there's a big medical disclaimer at the beginning of all these episodes about
Yeah.
none of
That's
this
good.
is medical advice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I am not medically telling you what to do, but
Yeah.
take the
It,
things
it,
you hear and proceed with caution.
yeah. I like what you said. Take it with a grain of salt. I've always grown up saying a pinch of salt, but I don't think it's
Oh,
correct. Maybe it is grain of salt, but
a
I thought it
pinch
was
is
grain
nice
of
too.
rice and pinch of salt. But anyways,
I
but
never
yeah,
thought of
I
grain.
like I said, every case is different. Every person is unique. You have to trial and error for yourself and see what works for you. Ivermectin, I've had no side effects from. Someone like Jez and Medinga, who wrote the book on long COVID, the handbook, a very good book I recommend, out of interest. But he said he tried ivermectin, he had this horrible skin rash reaction, and you know, so you have to trial things for yourself, and obviously, like I said, take care and proceed with caution because something could affect you negatively. You know, yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you have any final closing thoughts before we end this here episode?
Yeah, just thanks again for connecting, Lisa, and just inviting me on the podcast. And to those listening, just be encouraged that you are not alone. There are thousands, if not millions, of people around the world suffering with similar things to you, even if it's not long COVID or ME/CFS. Any health condition and chronic disease, illness, there will be someone else like you on the planet. So try and reach out to those people and connect with that. If it's a Facebook group, Instagram channel, you know, whatever that looks like, try and find those people that are in the same or a similar boat to you and connect with them, and try not do the journey alone, because you aren't alone. And if there's anyone that obviously wants to connect on a long COVID kind of connection, I do have a little WhatsApp group that I'm trying to run in my spare day, energy capacity days, and just connect with other people from around the world and South Africa who are battling long COVID and just want some community to talk to in terms of health. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I will link all the different things we talked about and your profiles and everything in the show notes so that people can reach out to you if they're interested. But yeah, and I highly, highly recommend checking out Chris's YouTube channel. There are so many, so many interesting videos. I never even know, I haven't made it through all of them yet, but every single one I've watched has been just, wow, so amazing. So highly recommend checking that out. Of course, yeah. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity to learn from you and hear your story and connect.
Thank you so much for joining me today on VisibilOT. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit from these strategies. For more insights and tips, follow me on Instagram at VisibilOT, that's VisibilOT. And don't forget to subscribe to the VisibilOT podcast to stay connected. Please consider taking the time to leave a review or rating on whatever platform you're listening on. And until next time, take care and stay visible.